blood stains, broken trust, and a storm brewing in the heart of Tulsa, episode 6 of Tulsa King doesn't just raise the stakes, it burns the whole table down. Just when Dwight thought he had his empire under control, the ground starts slipping from under his feet. This episode is not about power, it's about survival. Episode 6 opens with an eerie silence that doesn't feel peaceful. It feels like the quiet before something terrible. Dwight walks through the dim streets of Tulsa at dawn, the camera following his slow, heavy steps. You can sense he's thinking about more than just business. His empire might be growing, but the cracks are showing, and he knows it. The deals he made in the shadows are now coming back to haunt him. After the bloody end of episode 5, Dwight's crew is shaken. Trust is thin, and loyalty feels like a dying word. Chickie's name keeps coming up. Rumors spread that he's making moves behind Dwight's back, possibly cutting new deals in New York. Dwight doesn't say much, but his silence says everything. He's tired, but not weak. He's watching. Meanwhile, Stacy Beale is back in play. Her involvement with Dwight has blurred the line between law and loyalty, and now she's paying for it. The feds are on her neck, and her job is hanging by a thread. Yet, when she hears about Dwight's recent troubles, she can't help but check in. Maybe it's guilt, maybe it's something deeper. Either way, her decision will cost her more than she expects. In another part of town, Bodie tries to keep the business running. The weed shop is busier than ever, but his nerves are clearly shot. He's constantly looking over his shoulder, jumping at every sound. The tension isn't just in the streets, it's in every glance, every whispered word. Something's coming, and everyone feels it. Then comes a quiet dinner scene, Dwight sitting alone, eating steak with a glass of whiskey. No music, no dialogue, just the sound of the fork hitting the plate. This moment says it all. The once untouchable mob boss is alone, fighting ghosts from his past and the shadows of his present. He's lost men before, but this time, it feels different. This time, it's personal. As the episode builds, Tulsa feels heavier. The streets look darker, the faces harder. The city that once seemed like Dwight's playground now feels like his trap. And just when you think the tension can't rise any higher, it does. The first act ends with a mysterious phone call. Dwight answers, and we only hear a voice say, "You should have stayed in New York." The line cuts, and the screen fades to black. No answers, just questions. That's the power of episode 6. It doesn't tell you what's happening. It makes you feel it. The storm finally breaks, and it doesn't come quietly. Episode 6 shifts gears from slow tension to raw chaos. The air in Tulsa feels heavier, and every scene seems to pulse with danger. Dwight can sense it, the betrayal, the lies, the trap being built around him brick by brick. What began as small whispers behind closed doors now starts to echo loudly through his empire. And the worst part? The threat isn't just coming from the outside, it's growing from within. Early in this section, Dwight pays a visit to Mitch's bar. The place is quieter than usual, filled with a strange unease. Mitch tries to act normal, cleaning glasses, pretending the walls aren't closing in. But his eyes give him away. He knows something Dwight doesn't. When Dwight presses him, Mitch finally cracks, saying that a new player is making moves in Tulsa, someone who knows Dwight's every weakness. Dwight's expression turns stone cold. He doesn't need to ask who it is. He already knows. The betrayal becomes clearer when Dwight's crew starts falling apart. Tyson, the kid Dwight once treated like family, begins to question his loyalty. He's seen too much blood, too much fear, and too many close calls. His mother's warnings echo in his head. "He's not your father, Tyson. He's a gangster." That line plays over as he packs his things, ready to leave Tulsa behind. But fate doesn't give him the chance. On his way home, a black SUV tails him. The moment stretches, the headlights to bright, the road to empty. The next second, gunfire shatters the silence. Tyson's car swerves, crashes, and the screen fades to black for a few seconds, leaving viewers in shock. Meanwhile, Dwight's instincts kick in. He knows this wasn't random. Tulsa's starting to feel like the streets of Brooklyn again. only this time, there's no code, no rules. He storms into Bodhi's shop, demanding answers. Bodhi's terrified, saying someone hacked their accounts, traced their operations, and leaked the locations of their stash houses. Dwight's anger is volcanic, but underneath it, there's fear. Someone's been watching them closely, and whoever it is, they're not playing small. Stacy, on the other hand, finds herself torn in half. Her badge tells her to bring Dwight down, but her heart tells her he's not the monster the system paints him to be. She starts connecting dots, the money trails, the fake accounts, the anonymous tips to law enforcement. The evidence points toward Chicky and his new crew in New York. It's not just a turf war. It's a silent execution. Chicky's setting Dwight up to be crushed by both the cops and his rivals. One of the most gripping scenes in this section is the quiet standoff between Dwight and Bodhi. No shouting, no fighting, just heavy words. Dwight asks, if you knew you were being hunted, would you run or fight? Bodhi hesitates, realizing Dwight's not talking about business anymore. He's talking about survival. Dwight finishes his whiskey, looks at Bodhi and says, then we fight. It's the kind of line that defines a character, simple, strong, and final. The second half of the episode takes a darker turn. Dwight visits Tyson's crash site, his expression a mix of rage and heartbreak. For the first time, we see the cracks in his armor. He kneels beside the wreckage, running his hand over the broken glass. This isn't just business, it's family. And someone just crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. The pacing quickens as Dwight starts moving his pieces. He meets with Mitch again, this time with a plan. They talk about consolidating power, cutting off weak links, and preparing for war. But Dwight isn't the same man he was in season 1. This isn't about expanding anymore. It's about burning everything that threatens him. The turning point of episode 6 lands in the final minutes of this section. A mysterious envelope arrives at Dwight's house. No return address. Inside, there's a photo of him and Tyson from weeks ago, smiling in front of the shop. On the back, in red ink, are 3 words. Your next general. Dwight stares at it for a long time, his face frozen. Then, without a word, he lights a match and burns the photo. The flames dance in his eyes as the camera zooms in. And you realize something, the old Dwight, the one trying to build a new life in Tulsa, is gone. What's left is the mobster from New York, the man who doesn't forgive and never forgets. Episode 6 doesn't just turn the story, it transforms Dwight completely. The calm, the loyalty, the patience, all of it is stripped away. What remains is fire, revenge, and a promise of chaos for whoever dared to come after him. And as the credits roll, the streets of Tulsa don't look like a place for rebuilding anymore. They look like a battlefield waiting for the first shot. Tulsa bleeds under the weight of silence. The city that once buzzed with life now feels haunted by fear, by betrayal, and by Dwight's quiet vengeance. Episode 6 reaches its emotional breaking point here, where every choice made in the shadows begins to show its cost in daylight. The fallout isn't loud, not yet. It creeps in like smoke after a fire, impossible to ignore but slow enough to make you suffocate before you realize you're choking. The morning after Tyson's crash, Dwight stands at the edge of the wreckage site. His face tells 1,000 stories, but none of them have happy endings. He's seen death before, but this one cuts deeper. Tyson was more than a driver or an errand boy. He was proof that Dwight could still guide someone without destroying them. But now that hope lies buried under twisted steel and shattered glass. The local cops arrive, pretending to care, asking questions Dwight has no patience for. When one of them calls it a gang-related hit, Dwight's jaw tightens. That word means nothing to him now. This wasn't gang business. This was personal. By midday, news spreads through Tulsa's underworld. Tyson's death sends a ripple through the ranks. Fear starts replacing loyalty. Bodhi can barely keep the shop running. Mitch's bar empties out, and Dwight's name becomes a whisper again, the kind people use when they're scared to be heard. Everyone's waiting for Dwight to make a move. They know he will. The question isn't if, it's when. But Dwight doesn't act right away. He plans, he watches, he waits, That's what makes him dangerous. He knows revenge is a dish that spoils if served too early. So he calls a meeting not with his men, but with the very people who fear him most. Business owners, street hustlers, and small-time enforcers fill Mitch's bar after dark. The room is heavy with tension. Dwight steps in, wearing black from head to toe, ice cold, voice steady. He doesn't raise his tone once. He starts by laying out the truth. Someone inside their circle is feeding information to the enemy. Then he does something unexpected. He gives everyone a chance to walk away. If you want out, leave now, he says. No shame in survival. A few do, slipping out quietly, their footsteps echoing in the hollow silence. Dwight lets them go. He knows the real snakes won't. When the doors close again, the rest of the room feels smaller, tighter, suffocating. Dwight leans on the counter, looks around, and adds, "What happens next? Stays between us." The next sequence is pure cinematic tension. One by one, Dwight begins rebuilding his control, not through violence, but through fear and precision. He visits every corner of his empire, the bars, the shops, the alleys, reminding people who he is. Not through threats, but through silence and presence. It's the kind of leadership that makes everyone remember why they once followed him. Meanwhile, Stacy's world starts to collapse. Her superiors find out she's been communicating with Dwight, and now she's being investigated. They strip her badge, her weapon, and her reputation. Alone in her apartment, she watches the news report on Tyson's death, realizing the storm Dwight warned her about has finally arrived. Her guilt gnaws at her until she does something reckless. She calls Dwight. The call goes unanswered twice. Then, finally, he picks up. She says, "They're setting you up, Dwight." Chickie's not working alone. He doesn't reply, just breathes quietly on the other end, then says, "I know, that's it." Two words that carry a lifetime of pain, knowledge, and rage. As the episode moves deeper into its third act, Dwight's transformation is complete. He's no longer the exiled mobster trying to rebuild a peaceful empire. He's back to being the strategist, the survivor, the man who built his legend on loyalty and revenge. He begins turning his enemies' tricks against them, feeding false information through his remaining contacts. Slowly, he starts tightening the noose. There's a powerful moment where Dwight revisits the photo of Tyson, the same one that was sent to him before. Only this time, it's not in anger. He looks at it quietly, places it on his desk, and whispers, "You didn't die for nothing." That single line becomes the emotional heartbeat of this section. It's not about power anymore. It's about justice, his own kind of justice. The episode then dives into a sequence that perfectly captures the fallout. Tulsa at night, rain hitting the streets, headlights cutting through fog. Dwight's voice narrates over it, saying something that feels like both a threat and a prophecy. Every kingdom falls the same way. From the inside, it's haunting, calm, and chillingly true. By the end of this section, everyone in Tulsa feels the shift. The hunters have become the hunted. The game has changed, and Dwight is once again in control, not by playing fair, but by playing smarter. The old rules don't apply anymore, and the city knows it. The fallout isn't over. It's only beginning. But as the screen fades to black, one thing is clear. Whoever started this war has no idea what kind of monster they've awakened. Tulsa doesn't sleep anymore. The city feels alive, but not with life, with vengeance. Every alley, every neon light, every whispered rumor carries Dwight's name like a ghost story that people tell to keep themselves from forgetting who's really in charge. Episode 6's final stretch, The Reckoning, isn't about what Dwight says or does. It's about what he becomes. A man stripped of mercy, sharpened by loss, and driven by a code older than the streets themselves. The episode opens with rain. Not the gentle kind, the kind that washes away sins and blood alike. Dwight stands by the window of his old hideout, staring out at the storm. The once calm, calculating man is gone. What remains is something primal. The world took everything from him, his peace, his protege, his trust, and now it's his turn to take it all back. The silence of that moment says everything. There's no music, no dialogue, just the sound of thunder and his slow, steady breathing. He's waiting for the right time, but the truth is, the right time has already come. His first move is simple but deadly. Mitch gets a late-night call. Close the bar. Lock it up. Tell no one. That's all Dwight says. Within hours, his closest allies vanish off the streets, not in fear, but in formation. Like soldiers before a war, everyone knows what's coming. Mitch loads his shotgun, Bodhi wipes the drives clean, and even Stacy, stripped of her badge, chooses a side. She burns her remaining files on Dwight, as if setting her old life on fire will save her from what's coming next. Dwight's revenge doesn't roar, he creeps in. His enemies start disappearing one by one, not in daylight, but in whispers. The rival boss from Kansas City who tried to make a move, found tied to a chair in an abandoned garage, still breathing barely. The crooked cop who leaked Dwight's roots, gone without a trace. Each scene unfolds like a chessboard where every piece is being moved by a master who already knows how the game ends. But the true reckoning comes when Dwight finally confronts the man behind it all, Chicky. The confrontation doesn't happen in New York. It happens in Tulsa, fittingly, on Dwight's turf. Chicky's crew sets up in an old warehouse near the edge of town, thinking they have the upper hand. What they don't realize is that Dwight's already there. The tension is thick, rain pounding the roof, footsteps echoing through empty hallways, guns cocking in the dark. Then the doors burst open. Flashlights cut through the gloom, voices shout, and chaos erupts. But Dwight doesn't come in guns blazing. He moves like a shadow. One by one, he takes down Chicky's men, methodical, silent, brutal. When the smoke clears, it's just Dwight and Chicky standing face to face for the first time since New York. There's no shouting, no theatrics. Chicky smirks, still clinging to his arrogance. "You think you can beat the family," he says. Dwight steps closer, eyes unflinching. "I am the family," he answers. The line lands like a bullet, calm, cold, and final. What follows is pure tension, a stare-down between two men who built their lives on loyalty, only to destroy it. Dwight doesn't shoot him, not right away. Instead, he forces Chicky to confess every deal, every betrayal, every name. It's not just revenge. It's a cleansing. When Chicky finally breaks, Dwight delivers justice the only way he knows how, with one clean shot as Chicky's body hits the ground. The camera lingers on Dwight's face. There's no satisfaction, no triumph, only emptiness. Revenge has a cost, and he's paid it in full. The warehouse scene fades into silence, broken only by the sound of distant sirens and rain washing blood off the floor. The final minutes of the episode bring everything back to stillness. Dwight walks through Tulsa's empty streets, headlights reflecting off puddles, his figure small against the vast city he tried to control. He passes the weed shop, now dark and closed, the bar boarded up, the skyline flickering in the distance. It's his kingdom, but it feels hollow. Then comes the emotional gut punch. Dwight returns to Tyson's grave. No words, just a small flower left on the dirt. The same one Tyson gave him months ago when they celebrated opening the shop. He stands there for a long moment, then whispers, "It's done." The wind carries his words away. Almost like the city itself is listening. The screen cuts to black. But before the credits roll, we hear a single line of voiceover, Dwight's voice. Steady but tired, every empire falls. But a king always rises again. That's how episode 6 ends, not with victory, but with rebirth. Dwight isn't the same man who came to Tulsa. He's harder, colder, but clearer. He knows what kind of world he's living in now, and he's ready to own it, whatever it takes. The storm has passed, but the damage remains. And as viewers sit in silence, one thing becomes crystal clear. This isn't the end of the war. It's just the beginning of a new reign.